Well, look at this. A Jason Tatum sighting at Patriots training camp this morning. Looks to be walking around with no limp right there. While the Patriots are working their way out of a rebuild, the Celtics look to start one. And with their moves this offseason, it would signal a change in direction. First dealing Drew Holiday to the Blazers for Anthony Simons. And Simons is on an expiring contract and helped them get under the second apron. The moves didn't stop there. They dealt Kristaps Porzingis to the Hawks in a package that included Jordan Yang and second-round picks. Porzingis was his third leading scorer for Boston last season. And how about this one? All that led to the Celtics slashing their salary and tax bill by $300 million. That's a lot of money. Prior to the moves, the Celtics were expected to have the highest salary and tax bill in the NBA. Well, all these moves may be hard to stomach for Celtics fans, I'll tell you that. But Bobby Marks, how can these changes that Boston has made maybe help them find success down the road?
Yeah, this is the ultimate reset here, and I kind of equate it back to 2023. I know situation is a little bit different, and Jason Tatum is out for this year, but that's the offseason when they went out and got Kristaps Porzingis and Drew Holiday here. But they were coming off a conference finals as far as when they went out and made those moves here. And I think if you're Boston, I think the goal is to remain competitive this year, but also try to grab one of those top lottery positions, almost similar to what Dallas went through a year ago here. Because you remember, you've got Jason Tatum, you've got Jaylen Brown, and you've got Derek White all under contract, three players that are set to make $130 million next year. So it's a reset for this year, but it's also an eye on how you can add talent around them, similar to how they added Porzingis and Holiday 2 years ago.
So with no Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown is going to get more and more reps with the A1. And Perk, we've watched plenty of games of the Celtics. What does this gap year mean for Jaylen Brown?
I mean, it means that he can enter the conversation and we can start talking about him when you talk about a Jason Tatum or John Morant and show that he can be a number one option. I believe this is a moment for JB to go out there and show that he could be a 20 point per game score, 28 point per game score to 30 point per game score. And I believe he's ready for the mission. We know vocally he's a leader, but go out there this season in the full 82 games and display it on the floor. Also, look, I wouldn't just count this Celtic team out and think that they're going to be in the lottery. I believe this team is going to make the playoffs and through the play-in tournament. We have to remember over the last 3 seasons, their home record, which has been the best in the NBA, has been 97-23 over the last. So you take a Peyton Pritchard, Sam Hauser, a Joe Mazzulla who feeds off adversity, and you get this Celtic ball club that's going to be hungry and doubted. They're going to be right there in the thick of things in the Eastern Conference.
Yeah, Perk makes some good points right there. But with Jaylen Brown on the floor, David, all eyes are going to be on him offensively. What do you expect to see from him in this gap year?
Yeah, I think this can be a real star-making year for Jaylen Brown. We talk about in the way similar to a few years ago, if you recall, with the Pacers, with Paul George, when Danny Granger went out, Paul George really made that leap to be a star. We even go back further than that. Tracy McGrady with the Magic, Grant Hill was out, he became a star. Jaylen Brown, of course, we already know is a Finals MVP, but he's always been seen as the second guy to a Jason Tatum. I think success for the Celtics in terms of Jaylen Brown is concerned is you come at the end of this season and you look at a guy, as Perk said, who puts up 28 points, who shows a ton of leadership and does actually get this team in that play-in. And you can say we have a 1 and a 1A because Jaylen Brown has made a true ascension to that next level by being the guy with Boston. I think that can be a net positive for them.
Yeah, there's plenty of room for Jaylen Brown to really show the rest of the league who he is. And the one thing that stands out to me, though, is even though that this is going to be labeled as a quote-unquote gap year for the Celtics, the East is still wide open, as you can see right there. So, Perk, if Cleveland and New York are shoe-ins for the top 2 seeds, who do you think is the third best team in the East?
It's the Atlanta Hawks, the team that, stay getting disrespected, or should I say the superstar type player that gets disrespected in Trae Young. I'm looking at the pieces that they added around them. He already had elite wing defenders, but you go get Alexander Walker in free agency from Minnesota. You pick up Kristaps Porzingis, who I believe is going to complement Trae Young well, especially in the pick and roll. Jalen Johnson is going to be back. We forget, before Jalen Johnson got injured, one could argue that he was in the conversation of possibly getting a nod of being in the All-Star game, like being a first-time All-Star. So when I look at this Hawks team that is coached by Quinn Snyder, I'm looking at them to make some real noise and be a real threat in the Eastern Conference this year.
I do like the Hawks. I think they have Pacers potential in terms of a team that can get hot come playoff time. There's a clear top four in the East with Cavs, Knicks, Hawks. But for me, the third best team is the Orlando Magic. That team, to me, was derailed by injury. Last year, I thought they were one of the four best teams in the East if they could all be healthy. That offense fell off a cliff in part because of those injuries. But Paolo Banchero is the real deal. This is all NBA talent. He's coming off of averaging 29 points against the Boston Celtics in the first round, gave Tatum and Brown all that they can handle. I think adding Desmond Bane to that offense and the defense they already have, if they can get that offense humming, I think they are a clear third team in the East.
Yeah, look, the East is wide open and plenty of storylines. I see Perk doing a little side-by-side right there. There's a lot happening in the East as we go into this season. Bobby, thanks so much for the insight and joining the conversation as well. And we're talking about the East being open. However, no one brought up Chicago. And they are still trying to give Bulls fans something to be excited about next season. Take a look at this. The team, with a little help from Dennis Rodman, unveiled its statement jersey for the 2025-26 season with the iconic black uniforms with the red pinstripes, making a return to the made famous in Michael Jordan in that era. And when you take a look at MJ and the Bulls, they first wore the threads during the 1995-96 campaign, when the team went 72-10 and won a championship, and the jerseys are synonymous, obviously, with all those great highlights in the 90s as well. All right, still to come, it's NBA Defense Week on social media, so you know Big Perk's got a big list. And let's just say there's a big surprise at number one and an even bigger surprise at who didn't make the top three on road tripping.
The U.S. will not win gold in Los Angeles, California. Boom.
I'm sorry, say what?
Hold on now.
What did you say?
Wait. First of all,
Are you just trying to piss people off?
I'm not trying to piss people off. Did you see it took a Herculean effort for us? It took our greatest basketball players for us to beat a team that had one All-Star in Serbia and had no All-Stars in France.
Look, I'm sorry, what did you say? We're still 3 years away. However, Perk, what kind of chances are you giving Team USA to take gold in 2028?
Amina, you know it makes my damn skin crawl to have to agree with Richard Jefferson, right? And I agree with him. Look, I give him a 50% chance. I'm not going to disrespect them and say that they don't have a shot, because we do have some great young athletes on the rise. But I will say this, if I was a betting man, I wouldn't bet my money on them, because they're going to be missing a LeBron James. They're going to be missing the all-time leading scorer in the Kevin Durant and the Steph Curry. And Richard was right. It took some all-time great performances for them to come back home this past Olympics with a gold medal. And we look at what KD had to do in 2024, how he had to rise to the occasion and take his game to a different level. So if you ask me, do I have belief and trust that they could get it done in 2028 without a LeBron James, Steph Curry, and Kevin Durant? I don't.
Yeah, David, I think there's so many different factors, and Perk touched on it right there. We don't know who's going to be on that team. Also, I think it lends to the conversation that the rest of the world is catching up with Team USA.
Mm-hmm.
Look, I got to agree with Perk and Richard Jefferson here. If I'm having to pick between Team USA and the field, I'm picking the field. For the first time in the history since we've had the Dream Team in 1992, I don't think we're going to have a top 5 player in the Olympics. You got Wemby, you got Luka, you got Jokic, you got SGA, and you got Giannis. So the best players are on other countries, and you add in the fact that our best player, Jason Tatum, probably would be our best player in 2028. He didn't have that great of an experience when he played there in 2024. So you got to think about what that effect